Archers have been making somewhat of a comeback on the open field recently, and the open field meta has certainly shifted. So today, I'll be looking at the best commanders on the open field, ranking commanders from the best in the game down to the worst in the game. So if you're interested in the current open field climate, which commanders are trading the best, which commanders are not doing so hot right now, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now let's start off today by going over what is the main thing we're looking at for today's tier list. And obviously, we're looking at their current power. Which commanders right now are super good on the field, and are they trading very well? If a commander trades well, simply put, they're gonna get a high rank. And in some other situations, like let's say for example, Philip II, who is a really good support commander, they're also gonna go to good rank, because good support means obviously quite a strong commander. So we're looking at overall field potential. I don't care how good they might be in the future, I only care about how good they are right now. If you're thinking about investing in commanders, this list wouldn't be your go-to, but if you're interested in the best commanders to use in your open field murder balls, this will be the best list for you. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the tier list. Now, here is the list for today, and quite simply put, there are a total of 6 tiers like normal. The top tier must use these commanders. If you can, you should be running them in your murder ball, and they're also probably going to be the best investments in the game. Amazing. These commanders are pretty good. I mean, they're very good secondaries normally to a must-use commander. They're going to trade really nice right now. Their investment potential obviously may not be as good as the must-use commanders, and while that isn't taken into account today, I thought I would mention it, but they are very nice commanders. Rare use can be used for around 3 marches of one troop type, can trade pretty good, but not your best picks. Mid, there's better choices out there, but if you need them, you can run them. Bad, I would almost never run in like every situation. And kill feeds, if you run these, you're going to be giving your opponents a bunch of free 7 wounds, and you don't want that. So we're going to be mainly looking at, for most people, the top 3 tiers, and everything below that would only be if you're really desperate, and anything below, really, anything in the bad tier and below, you just shouldn't be running at all. Starting off today, though, with Herman Prime, definitely in the amazing tier. Really solid commander, good for 2 marches. Okay with Quincy Hung, but obviously not his best pairing. Really good with Zulang, and definitely a must-have if you're running 2 Archer Marchers, and he's going to be a nice support as well. Gonzalo, quite an amazing commander, especially when you put him with Garjamada. They're the current range meta, to my knowledge, and they trade pretty good. Sargon, pretty mid. There's much better commanders out there. His rapid, or like his weird single target additional damage over time does kind of limit him, in my opinion. Joan Prime, compared to her investment, she is quite an okay commander on the field. I mean, actually quite a good one. You would use her for 2 marches, certainly with Nevsky, if you're running, let's say, an Hound-Shaping Arthur, and then your second cab march would be a Nevsky Joan. Really good march. Joan, very nice. Nevsky, still very solid with her, and it's going to trade pretty good. You can also run Hound-Shaping Joan if you're running a Arthur Pendragon primary and a Nevsky secondary. Justinian, quite mid. There are better open field commanders nowadays. Lapu Lapu, you're feeding your opponent's kills. Scipio Emilianus, I'll put him around the top of the mid tier. I forgot to mention, we're going to be ranking them left to right, left being the best of that tier, right being the worst of that tier. So every tier from the must use down to the mid tier will be ranked left to right, best to worst for the tier. Bad and kill feeds I won't really be ranking, so do keep that in mind. Moving on to Hound Shaping, definitely an amazing commander. Probably the top of the tier. Really good with Arthur Pendragon, and he's trading really nice on the field right now, and he has good open field potential with someone like Joan Prime as well. So I like Hound Shaping as a field commander right now, doing pretty good and trading pretty nice. Most of the ranged commanders, outside of being okay investments, are kind of average, especially Stephen and John. They're not the best of the ranged commanders. I have noticed that commanders like Margaret tend to perform a little bit better on the open field. Now, reason being, I don't really know. I think that Stephen and John were just quite an average release, and they haven't really been making big waves. I think the range meta is probably going to get something nice very soon, is my guess at least, because they're kind of a bit behind compared to other troop types. Zulang, right now, I think is a must-use commander. Really good with Quincy Hung. While he isn't the most amazing investment, and you'll see that if you watch the investment list, and I'll stop talking about investment, Zulang is just really good on the field right now. 5 March AoE, really powerful damage factor, nice rage gain that goes well with Quincy Hung. Overall, quite a nice commander. Tarek, quite an average commander. There are better commanders out there. I think Scipio Emilianus is actually a little bit stronger than him, and Tarek just isn't really doing much on the field at the moment. Baiki, definitely one of the top 3 in the must-use tier. The top 3 commanders in must-use aren't really going to be ranked against each other since they're all relatively close in power. Baiki, one of the top 3 commanders in the game right now. Really good trades, really nice with Leo Chair, and is hitting really hard. William, rare use. If you're running up to 3 infantry marches, you can certainly run him with a Baiki, and then you run a Leo Chair with an Alex, and a Scipio with a Ragnar Prime, but for most people, William is not going to be your number 1 choice of a commander. So William, rare use in my opinion, is quite fair. Tokugawa, more of a garrison commander, not really a field commander, but he's not the worst on the field because he is relatively new. There are just a lot of more powerful choices. Shajar, rare use in my opinion, going on to the mid tier almost because of her healing and the fact that Mighty Healing didn't really see anything special this release. She has taken a hit to her effectiveness. While she's okay with commanders like Quincy Hung and she can perform alright with commanders like Zhu Lang, she just isn't really the meta right now, and there are just better commanders out there. Philip II, I'll put him into the must-use. One of the best commanders in the game for a bigger murder ball. Now, he's probably the worst of this tier because you want to have around 5 or so marches before he's fully effective. But even for 3 to 4 marches, he's a reasonable pickup, and he can work really nice. So Philip II, I think, is a must-use commander for most players, just because his buffs are really insane. Scipio Africanus, pretty amazing commander, good AoE, good debuffs, and overall pretty strong. Same thing for Ragnar Prime. I mean, they pair really well together, so overall, I would say that Scipio and Ragnar are just really solid and amazing commanders at the moment for the open field. Boudica Prime, she's probably mid right now. I mean, at the moment, she isn't hitting too amazing. She's taking a lot of damage, and her debuffs are kind of outdated, so I wouldn't really pick her up for most players. Next up, we've got a lot of quite average commanders, to be honest. Hannibal Barker, I would never use. YSS, I would never use. Edward, I mean, he's bad. You can maybe get away with him if you're desperate and you have no other choice to run with a Quincy Hung, but that would pretty much only apply to like 1 player in the whole entire game. So Edward, I would never really run. El Cid, pretty bad. Frederick, pretty bad. Constantine, only good for just literally tanking and okay in Canyon, but we're looking at open field value here. So Constantine, pretty average. Eleanor, pretty average for the open field, almost, I would say, the bad tier. She's an okay garrison, but we're looking at field potential here today. Quincy Hung, though, Quincy Hung is one of the top 3 commanders in the game. Him and Baiki both together are a really dominant 2 commanders to have in a murder ball. Quincy Hung with a Zhu Lang is a really good march. Quincy Hung with YSG is really good, and at the moment, he is really doing well on the open field. So Quincy Hung, nice commander to have, and in my opinion, is in that must-use tier. Chapo, I'm going to put him in the rare use. He's not too bad on the field. He's not too amazing. I think he's better than Shajar in most situations at the moment, but he is very rally usable. He's like really good in the rally, but he's okay on the field. He'll definitely move down in the tier very soon because he's brand new right now and he's got really meta stats and damage. He is just in that rare use tier. Honda, mid in my opinion. There are better commanders. Bertrand, pretty mid. I think even after he's got that rework, him and CJ got that rework, there are better commanders in the game who are just going to trade nicer. Ashurbanipal, in my opinion, he's almost at that amazing tier, but I'll put him in the rare use with William. They're both really good for 3 marches of their troop type respectively. Ashurbanipal, really nice for 3 archer marches, I've noticed. Not the most amazing, definitely not bad by any means, and he is outperforming a lot of the current archer commanders like Boudica and Henry, who are starting to kind of fall behind. Subutai, quite an average open field commander, very good rally, decent with a tiller, to be honest, but he's not going to be a number 1 go-to choice. Guan Yu, quite an average open field commander as well. He's got really good support with that silence effect, and it can be nice for swarming garrisons, and even on the open field, it can be pretty juicy, but he isn't the number 1 choice, in my opinion, at the moment. Belisarius Prime, I'll also put him into mid. There's a lot more rage reduction commanders in the game right now. We've had Quincy Hung, who has rage reduction. While he doesn't have a lot, it really does stack up. Like, in 1 turn, he only takes away, I think it's like 15 on his expertise. But in 5 turns, with 15 damage rage reduction, in 5 turns, you've taken away, I think it's like 75 rage, and that's a sizable amount, and Philip II also reduces rage. So Belisarius Prime's overall kit starting to fade away at the moment, and not as good as it used to be. Nebu's alright. I mean, there's better commanders out there. I think he's a little bit weaker than some of the top mid-tier commanders, and he's definitely not in some of those higher tiers. Arthur Pendragon, certainly a must-use commander in that top 3 right there, with Quincy Hung, Baiki, and Arthur. So those 3 commanders, they're all, in my opinion, relatively equal in strength, almost identical in strength, if anything. They just are different troop types. So really, those 3 commanders, solid, and powerful open field choices. Definitely, if you have a murder ball, I would try to run all 3 of those commanders, and they're going to trade really well. Suleiman, definitely a kill feeds commander. Nevsky, probably in that amazing tier around the strength of Joan. Trade's pretty nice with Joan. Trade's pretty good with Arthur Pendragon if you're running Arthur Pendragon as a primary. Just not as good as Hao Che Bing if you're running Arthur Pendragon as a secondary. Hao Che Bing just performs a little bit better. So Nevsky, while he's really nice with Arthur Pendragon, Hao Che Bing is just that touch bit stronger, which I think makes him a bit of a better commander. Jedwiga, definitely kill feeds. Liu Che, definitely a meta commander up there with Zhu Lang and Philip. Really, really good commander. If you're looking at these top commanders, really what you're noticing is you should be running a Qin Shi Huang with a Zhu Lang, a Bai Qi with a Liu Che, and an Arthur Pendragon, not with a Philip, preferably with a Hao Che Bing, but you also want to have a Philip somewhere in that mutable. So around 4 marches, you can already see the main meta commanders starting to form here. Jan Zizka, quite a bad open field commander. Caesar, quite a bad one. Can be okay with very fast rage cycle commanders, but not very good nowadays, to be honest. Lubu, quite bad. Zenobia, almost useless. Mehmed, weaker than Honda. They're probably going to see a move down in the next few tier lists. They're okay for now. You can maybe get away with them if you're desperate, but I don't really see a reason to run them, especially now with commander resets. There are just better commander choices that you can get quite easily. So there's no real need for intermediate commanders like Mehmed that you might have considered running before. Gorgo, I'll put her into the mid tier. She's solid on the field, but she's just not the best in the game. And while she does outperform compared to some of the commanders below her, she isn't going to be a number 1 pickup. Cao Cao, in my opinion, he's quite a bad commander. Can be okay for early game, and obviously he's good for peacekeeping, but we're looking at open field strength, and he just isn't that good. Ragnar Lodbrok, not prime. Quite a bad commander. Okay with Attila, but not the most meta. Cyrus, at the moment, rare usage. Pretty okay with Chapeau, to be honest, if you run a Cyrus as a primary, but he's definitely going to be targeted, and obviously while we haven't been able to really test Chapeau with a Cyrus, at least at the time of recording this, since I'm recording this before I go on vacation, Cyrus is quite a okay commander with Chapeau in the Rise of Kingdoms tester from what I've seen. In-game, he could differ, but even then, swarming garrisons, he's almost going to be essential if you're rallying with a Chapeau, and I just think that a Chapeau with a Cyrus is going to be okay on the field. Will it be absolutely meta? No, but if you have a Chapeau rally and you have a Cyrus expertise, you can certainly get away with running that as a pretty okay march on the open field. Mulan, quite a bad commander nowadays. There are much better buffing commanders. Heraclius, I don't really see a reason to run him on the field. He's not even at the mid tier anymore. When he first released, his AoE was okay. Nowadays, it just isn't very good. Flavius, pretty bad nowadays. Genghis Khan, pretty bad nowadays. Henry, a mid commander in my opinion. Quite humbly mid. He can work. He's a bit tanky. He's not too bad. He's alright for city popping, but he just isn't full meta, and there are just a bunch of commanders above him who would make a lot more sense. Moctezuma is a joke. Thutmose is quite a... I'm going to put him in the bad tier. I mean, I'd consider the mid tier. I just don't see a purpose in running him. There's a lot of archer commanders above him who are better, and even though some people say he's good for a gold key commander, you can just commander reset and get better commanders once you hit Season 3, so I just don't see a purpose outside of the early game. Harold, I'm going to put him into the bottom of the mid-tier with Pakal. They're bad investments, surely, like they're not very good at the moment, and they're not very anti-swarm anymore, so I don't see a purpose in running them, but I've seen people use it in like 6 to 7 infantry marches. I definitely wouldn't recommend it, but if you're desperate, you can maybe get away with running it as like a rubbish city pop, but it's not going to be a go-to in almost any situation. Amana Torre, definitely kill feeding at the moment. Pyrrhus, I'm going to put him into the bad. There's much better commanders. Sundok is kill feeds. Theodora is kill feeds. William, quite an interesting commander. His buffs are still alright. His damage is still okay. It's not very good anymore. So I think he's quite a respectable mid-commander. Trajan, bad. You would rather a Philip in almost every situation. Zhang Yu, very similar situation to William. They're pretty much equal in power. YSG right now, I'll put him towards the top of the rare usage. Really, really good with Qin Shi Huang for 2 archer marches, but he isn't super overpowered. So keep that in mind. He's nice with Qin Shi Huang, but that's only because of how dominant Qin Shi Huang currently is. YSG himself isn't the most OP field commander. Leonidas is a joke. Barbara is just another range commander who's quite average in my opinion. Chandragupta, quite a bad commander. There are better debuffing commanders. Ethelfled, also quite a bad commander. There are a lot of better debuffing commanders. Amana Torre, quite a bad commander. Can barely work with Boudica if you're like super desperate, but definitely wouldn't be a go-to choice. Charles Martel, quite a bad commander. CJ, he's been buffed. He's alright. He's probably around the strength of Bertrand. They're quite equal in strength, just different troop types, but they're just not the most amazing on the field. Ishida, not very good. Cleopatra, not very good. Gilgamesh, she's not too bad. I mean, like, his health debuffs, okay. I wouldn't really recommend running him. He's definitely towards the bottom of the tier, probably the bottom besides like a Mehmed. These 4 commanders here will definitely be getting a rank down in the next tier list. Just right now, I can't really justify ranking them down. Minamoto, I'll put him in the mid tier towards the top, to be honest. He's an alright cav commander. He's solid, very easy to get, can run him. But there are just a lot of stronger cav commanders who will outperform him. And I think Belisarius Prime is just a little bit better. I'll actually put Subutai a little bit higher as well. He does perform a bit better than Minamoto. And I will put Tarek a bit above Minamoto. But Minamoto, really easy to access. So if you're desperate for a cav commander and you're willing to spend the money, if you're willing to spend $300 for a pretty average commander, you could consider it if you really wanted it. Dido, quite bad on the open field. Almost no reason to run her. Ramses, I'll put him in the top of the bad tier. Even though the bad tier is not really ranked, I will just put him up there. He's right with Cyrus, for what that's worth, and maybe if you're swarming a garrison, you could find that useful, but I think that commander pairings like Henry and Boudica with Cyrus do outperform, and I'm saying that as one of the few players who use Cyrus until, like, the death. I used Cyrus for a very long time, so Cyrus, he's alright if you're swarming a garrison and you don't have a shopper with a Ramses, but he isn't going to do too well, and he's definitely going to take a negative trade. You'd mainly be swarming at that point for his debuff, not really swarming for a positive trade. Richard absolutely sucks. Saladin, also quite a bad commander. Takeda, quite a bad commander. Tamiris, almost kill feeds at this point. You'd just rather run a Herman in every situation. Wuzatianis kill feeds. Attila is quite a respectable commander on the field right now with Subutai. They're an okay pairing. They're a good rally as well. So I think mid-tier is quite justifiable. Alex, Reuse, 3 infantry marchers is quite good. I'd say he's better than Cyrus. I think Shopper is probably better than YSG a little bit, but actually I'll put Shopper below YSG. That's probably what the rare tier should be looking like right now. It is quite solid. And finally, we have Charlemagne, who is obviously kill feeds. And that's a spare Sargon, because I have a duplicate one. So that is the full tier list. I'll move my webcam so you can see it properly. That's everything. That's the best commanders in the game, down to the worst. In a rough order, you could justify moving some commanders above others. So, like, for example, Alex, you could justify being higher up. Shajai, you could justify being below Cyrus. But roughly, this is what we're looking at. And the tiers, I think, are relatively set in stone. These commanders belong in the tiers that they're in. I don't really see a reason you could justify moving some of these commanders up a tier. Most of them are pretty stable in the tier that they're currently in. So when we look at it, this would be the official tier list, I think, in my opinion, as of July. This would be 2025 with the release of Quincy Hung. And while Chapeau isn't in the game, his kit is relatively predictable, so we kind of know how he will perform when he fully releases, and I think rare use is a good spot for him. Now, if you found today's video interesting, helpful, or just entertaining, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It's completely free, and it is very, very helpful. So, if you found a video useful, entertaining, whatever it may be, subscribing, really easy way to show some support, and it is very much appreciated. Other than that, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.